Hey friends, just Christina here. I'd like to do a very quick video that is kind of a continuum, but just a sidestep of the hertz and frequency video that I did. This one is still focused on brain waves, but I'd like to talk a little bit just about the first three stages of sleep, the non-REM stages, and how sleep medications might not be the answer. So the first three stages of sleep, those are the non-REM stages. And when we're fully awake, our frequency output fluctuates, but we're typically experiencing beta activity with a Hertz operational frequency around 15 to 20. Now, when we start to close our eyes and relax, it triggers a slowing of those Hertz frequencies to the alpha rhythm, which is around 8 to 12 cycles. And after several minutes of being in that relaxed state, your heart rate starts to slow, your breathing slows, you slip into stage one. As your tension slips away even more, you start entering stage two. And that can actually be identified by 12 to 14 hertz, but it has these spikes of the 14 to 18 hertz range. They're called spindles, and it's very indicative of this stage of sleep. So stage two, of course, gives rise to stage three, known as delta sleep, and that's around 1 wave per second. It's identified by these much larger, much slower waves. Now, arguably, this is also stage four, or slow wave sleep, called SWS. And we might hear the chattering buzz as background noise lulling us before we cycle through full circle and we come back around to stage two again, repeating those stages 2, 3, and 4. Now, delta lasts anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. And it is the hardest state of sleep to wake up from. If you've ever had trouble waking somebody up and you're shaking them and they just will not come around, they're probably in delta sleep. So on average, let's say a normal 7 to 8 hour night of sleep, we experience around 4 to 5 cycles, and they're anywhere from 90 to 110 minutes total. These sleep cycles are mostly spent in stage two. Actually, about half the night is spent in stage two. I mean, not in progression, of course, but more time is spent in stage two through the cyclical process each time it comes back around. Now, as humans, we spend more than half our day awake, right? So when we spend more than 2/3 of the night in non-REM sleep, it's because our circadian rhythms provide this temporal organization of your behavior. So it's only logical that all these external variables affecting sleep and quality of sleep play a role in your cognitive abilities. If you don't sleep well, you don't think well. Now, when we make it to REM, we do experience some metabolic changes. For example, when we enter REM sleep, we experience an increase of temperature and blood flow to our brains. We have more organized thoughts, which lead to dreams, and they are more organized later in the night. So the first REM stage is always the shortest. But the last stage of REM, in that 7 to 8 hour of sleep cycle, it can last up to 40 minutes. So let's talk about energy conservation, niche adaptation, memory consolidation, body restoration. These are all things that sleep is good for, right? We need sleep, but some people need less sleep than others. So there are some elderly people who only sleep an hour a night. There are some parents of newborns who are sleep deprived, but they might adapt eventually, but it can also cause forgetful errors or mess ups because of a lack of that cognitive function. Now, other afflictions can cause irregular sleep, like trauma-related stress disorders, depression, situational sleep deprivation. So some people take barbiturates like Ambien or Sonata or Lunesta. Those are drugs that block secretions in your brain. They specifically block something called hypocretin receptors. Now, those hypocretin receptors could potentially, in themselves, usher in sleep. So blocking this is especially bad because these drugs over time will lose their efficacy. And intolerance will not only alter your sleep pattern while on it, but for several days after you stop taking it. It's especially bad when you're in situations that you stop taking it and then you're trying to think and process through the day and you feel like you have this sleep drunkenness. So a couple of friends of mine have had really bad experiences with Ambien. And one of my former coworkers, he was taking it, and he was an art major. He came to work the next morning with a very interesting story that he and his girlfriend had actually cleaned up their kitchen the night before. Everything was totally clean and picked up. And he woke up the following morning, and he was an art student at the time, but he showed us a picture of this incredible rendition of Santa Claus. And it was just what his mind's eye had envisioned, and it was very scribbly, but you could tell it was Santa. And it was very, very peculiar. So he also made spaghetti in the middle of the night. Now, another friend of mine, she was one of my massage clients many years ago, and she was a straight shooter. She was a mom. She had just come through and survived breast cancer. She went to church. She was clean. She didn't drink. She was just a very wonderful woman. And she told me that, she was taking this sleep medication, Ambien, for insomnia, and she literally woke up at the bar having a conversation with the bartender. She had no recollection of the drive, but she woke up at the bar in her bathrobe, so she didn't have any recollection of anything at all, the conversation with the bartender or anything. So she excused herself, she left. She wasn't a drinker, and she had never been to that establishment before. So sleeping pills overall do have a really bad reputation. Now, given the efficacy of their short-term abilities, I would say find a different option. If melatonin doesn't work for you, then maybe try cutting out your screen time an hour before you go to bed, read a book, do something that helps you fall asleep naturally. It's much safer in the long run. Now, it's kind of a catch-22 with sleeping pills, right? Because you do get some sleep, but in the long run, it just makes it that much worse. So even after you stop taking them for several nights, you can be guaranteed that you will have sleepless nights. Now, some afflictions that are caused from sleep deprivation, like cognitive impairments, they in themselves can be very dangerous too. So when we take those barbiturates like Ambien or Sonata or Lunesta or any of those drugs that block those hypocretin receptors, you're only doing more long-term damage. So it over time, like I said, they do lose their efficacy. You build up that tolerance, but having that sleep drunkenness and having that feeling is also not good for your cognitive functioning. So sleeping pills, like I said, they're catch-22. Now, as for sleep deprivation and how it impacts our daily life, let's say you're parents of a newborn, right? And you put the milk in the cupboard by accident because you have lower cognitive reasoning abilities. Or sleep deprivation on students who have, and it has detrimental effects on their grades because of memory and positive and negative associations. So students who cram, it's not a good idea. You're never going to remember anything. You're much better off studying in small 10 to 20 minute increments up to a week before, rather than trying to cram everything the night before. You will not pass. So overall, sleep not only helps us figure things out and regenerate and feel refreshed and fully functional the next day, but sleep is also highly responsible for good self-regulation, better cognitive and physical reflexes, and overall just more positive and intuitively functioning well-being. So another thing, very quickly, that I'd like to talk about, just regulating your circadian rhythms and allowing your body enough time to perform those restorative functions. You will notice an overall increase in positive health, positive mental attitude, and more self-regulation throughout your entire sleep cycle. But if you are medicated or inebriated, you will not reach delta waves. It's very unlikely that you will. So try, if you can, take your medications in the morning and regulate that way. If you do have to take some kind of medication, there are some that do affect your sleep. So talk to your medical provider if that is an option. If you're finding yourself not able to sleep, if you have regular insomnia, it could be medically related. Now, likewise, like I said, turning off your screens at night and just having that downtime to allow your brain to naturally cycle down from gamma or beta, whatever you're in, and then down through alpha and theta and delta to where you need to be, so eventually you can achieve REM sleep and wake up feeling refreshed. All right, friends, that's all for this one. So I hope you sleep well, and positive mental health to you.